Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There are certain things that can straight up kill your value in front of a man. And trust me, I've seen it happen over and over again. But here's the thing, you've got the power to fix it. It's not about being perfect. It's about understanding your worth and holding on to it. Let's talk about the 4 biggest mistakes women make that reduce their value, and we're going to be real about it. Confidence is the foundation upon which everything else is built. When you walk into a room, the energy you project speaks volumes about how you see yourself. If you lack confidence, it's as if you're sending a signal to the world that you don't believe you are worthy of respect, attention, or love. Confidence isn't just about looking good or having the right clothes or makeup. It's about feeling good in your own skin. A confident woman walks with a sense of purpose. She knows who she is and isn't afraid to show it. When you have confidence, you don't need to seek validation from others because you've already given that to yourself. One of the main things that damage a woman's value in front of a man is when she doesn't have confidence in herself. She might try to be someone she's not or act in ways that are inauthentic, all in an attempt to get approval or attention. What you need to understand is that real confidence comes from being comfortable with who you are, flaws and all. It's about accepting your imperfections and realizing that they don't define your worth. Men are drawn to women who own their uniqueness, who don't try to fit into someone else's mold. They respect a woman who isn't afraid to stand out and be unapologetically herself. Without confidence, you're more likely to second-guess your decisions, doubt your worth, and constantly seek external approval. When you rely too heavily on others to validate your existence, you set yourself up for disappointment and frustration. A man might give you attention for a moment, but the moment you start relying on him for your sense of worth, you're giving him too much power over how you feel about yourself. That's when the imbalance starts. You're no longer operating from a place of self-assurance. Instead, you're clinging to someone else's perception of you. And that's a dangerous place to be because people can feel when you're needy or insecure. It creates a dynamic that's not healthy, and eventually it will diminish your value in the relationship. The way to develop and maintain your confidence is to start with self-love. You've got to learn to appreciate yourself for who you are and not just for what others think of you. This doesn't mean that you won't have bad days or moments of self-doubt. It's natural to feel those things from time to time. What it does mean is that you don't let those moments define you. You rise above them. Confidence comes from experience, from pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and realizing that you are capable of more than you thought. It comes from setting goals and achieving them, no matter how big or small. When you accomplish something, you add to your self-belief. Another key element to confidence is how you speak to yourself. Your inner dialogue shapes the way you view yourself. If you constantly criticize and belittle yourself, that's the energy you'll project to the outside world. But if you practice positive self-talk and remind yourself of your strengths and your worth, you'll naturally start to exude that confidence outwardly. Confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about embracing who you are, imperfections and all, and owning your value. When you're confident in yourself, you stop worrying about whether or not a man will notice you. You become someone who attracts respect and admiration simply because you respect yourself. It's crucial to understand that confidence isn't about being loud or brash. It's about being secure in your own skin. A quiet, calm confidence can be even more powerful than anything else. When you believe in your own worth, You won't allow anyone to make you feel less than. Confidence empowers you to take charge of your own life and to set boundaries that protect your self-esteem. Men recognize and value a woman who is self-assured because it signals that she won't settle for anything less than the best. And that's an attractive quality in any relationship. Self-respect is the cornerstone of any meaningful relationship, and it directly impacts how others treat you. When you have self-respect, you understand your worth and don't tolerate disrespect or mistreatment from anyone, including a man. Without self-respect, you cannot expect others to show you the same level of regard. It is important to realize that self-respect isn't just about what others do for you, but it's about how you treat yourself and the standards you set for the way you allow others to treat you. If you let people cross your boundaries or disregard your feelings, you're sending a message that your worth is not important. Self-respect is about knowing that you deserve to be treated well and not settling for anything less. One of the most dangerous mistakes a woman can make is compromising her self-respect in order to gain affection or attention from a man. This often happens when she allows herself to be disrespected or mistreated, hoping that by putting up with bad behavior, she can somehow earn his love or admiration. But here's the reality. Respect is earned, not given. And if you allow someone to treat you poorly, you're giving up your self-respect in exchange for something temporary. True love and respect in any relationship can only come when both parties are willing to treat each other with dignity. If you settle for disrespect, you're teaching the man that he can get away with treating you poorly. And eventually, this will erode the relationship. When a woman lacks self-respect, it becomes clear in the way she accepts behavior that goes against her values. She may let herself be belittled, ignored, or taken for granted, all in the name of keeping the relationship intact. However, this only leads to resentment and dissatisfaction in the long term. A man will eventually lose respect for a woman who doesn't stand up for herself because he'll begin to take her for granted. If you don't respect yourself, you're not creating an environment where mutual respect can thrive. It's essential to maintain your self-respect because it serves as the foundation for building a strong, healthy relationship. Respect begins with setting boundaries. When you know your limits and express them clearly, you are showing the world that you value yourself. Boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines that protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. A woman with self-respect doesn't allow someone to push her into situations that make her uncomfortable, and she doesn't tolerate behavior that violates her principles. It's important to establish these boundaries early in any relationship and to be firm in maintaining them. If a man truly values you, he will respect your boundaries and appreciate you for being clear and assertive about your needs. Furthermore, self-respect involves taking care of yourself in every way, emotionally, mentally, and physically. It means not settling for unhealthy relationships, but choosing ones that uplift and support you. It means knowing that you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness, and not accepting anything less. When you have self-respect, you aren't afraid to walk away from a relationship that isn't serving you because you understand that your worth isn't tied to someone else's approval. You don't need anyone to validate your existence because you've already done that for yourself. A woman with self-respect is empowered in her own right. She knows her value and won't tolerate being treated like she's anything less than extraordinary. Self-respect is not about arrogance, but about holding yourself to a standard that reflects your true worth. When you respect yourself, you naturally attract people who will treat you with the same level of respect. This creates a healthy dynamic in which both partners are able to grow, thrive, and support one another. One of the most detrimental things that can diminish your value in front of a man is being overly dependent. It's understandable to want companionship and support in a relationship, but when your happiness, sense of stability, or self-worth hinges entirely on someone else, you lose the essence of who you are. A healthy relationship is built on mutual support and respect, not on one person relying on the other for everything. If you lean too heavily on a man, expecting him to fulfill all your emotional, financial, and social needs, you create an imbalance that is difficult to sustain. The reality is, no one person can be everything for you. You must cultivate your own sense of happiness and security, regardless of whether you are in a relationship or not. When you depend too much on a man to provide your emotional stability, it places an unfair burden on him. He might initially feel flattered by your reliance, but over time, it can become exhausting. People are not meant to be emotional crutches. Everyone needs space to grow, evolve, and be their own person within the context of a relationship. A man will start to feel overwhelmed if he is expected to be the source of all your happiness and emotional fulfillment, and it could push him away. Being overly dependent also stunts your personal growth. If you're constantly relying on someone else for validation or direction, you are not developing your own sense of purpose or individuality. You may lose sight of your passions, goals, and ambitions because you're too focused on the other person. Men are often attracted to women who are confident and self-sufficient, who have their own lives and can hold their own in a conversation or a situation. When you're too dependent on someone else, you become a shadow of who you truly are. Your identity becomes intertwined with theirs, and that's not healthy for either of you. A man may initially appreciate being needed, but it will soon turn into a feeling of being trapped or burdened. This kind of emotional dependence can lead to resentment, as it places an unfair amount of pressure on him to meet all your needs. It may also cause you to lose a sense of yourself as you become more focused on what he needs or wants, neglecting your own desires and dreams. When you're in a relationship with a man, it's important that both partners bring something to the table. It's not just about being there for each other, but also about supporting one another's individuality and growth. The healthiest relationships are those where both partners are whole and secure in themselves, not looking to the other person to complete them. They share love, support, and companionship, but they also maintain their independence. A man is more likely to value you when he sees that you can stand on your own 2 feet, that you have your own passions, goals, and a strong sense of self. Dependence on him makes him feel like you need him in order to feel good about yourself, which can turn the relationship into something that feels more like a caretaker dynamic rather than an equal partnership. Being self-sufficient doesn't mean being cold or distant. It doesn't mean rejecting help or support when it's offered. It simply means that you don't rely on someone else to fill the voids in your life. You understand that your happiness, your confidence, and your sense of fulfillment come from within, and you don't depend on someone else to make you feel complete. When you build your own life, pursue your own passions, and maintain your own sense of worth, you're not only healthier as an individual, but you're also more attractive to a man who values your independence and strength. One of the most damaging things you can do in a relationship is to not establish and maintain boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your emotional, physical, and mental well-being. They are the standards you set for how you expect to be treated and how much of yourself you're willing to give to someone else. Without boundaries, you allow others to overstep your limits, and that leads to feelings of discomfort, resentment, and eventually a loss of respect for yourself. A man will take note of how well you set your boundaries, and if you don't, it can significantly reduce your value in his eyes. The problem with not having boundaries is that it leads to a lack of respect, not just from the other person, but from yourself as well. When you don't set limits, you're essentially telling yourself that your feelings, your needs, and your sense of self-worth don't matter. This can lead to situations where you let someone mistreat you, push you beyond your comfort zone, or expect more from you than you're able or willing to give. Over time, you will feel depleted, drained, and unappreciated. This not only harms your emotional health, but also undermines the foundation of the relationship. A lack of boundaries creates an imbalance in power. When you don't establish what's acceptable and what's not, you give the other person control over your life and your emotions. You let them dictate how much of yourself you give, how much time you spend with them, and how they treat you. This power dynamic is never healthy because it means that you're no longer acting from a place of self-respect and autonomy. Instead, you're allowing someone else to dictate your worth and your place in the relationship. This can lead to frustration on both sides. You may feel like you're constantly giving, compromising, and bending to the will of the other person, but ultimately you end up feeling unappreciated, and the man may start to see you as someone he can take for granted. Setting boundaries isn't about being rigid or closed off. It's about knowing when to say no or when to assert your needs. A woman who is clear about her boundaries knows what she can tolerate and what she cannot. She isn't afraid to speak up if something isn't right, and she makes sure that her values and feelings are respected. A man will notice this strength and will likely respect you more for it. Boundaries help maintain a sense of balance in a relationship, where both parties are aware of and respect each other's space, needs, and feelings. When boundaries are set, there is a mutual understanding of what is and isn't acceptable behavior. Another aspect of boundaries is emotional self-protection. It's important not to give away all of yourself too quickly, especially when the relationship is still new. You don't have to share every detail of your past or every feeling you're experiencing. Healthy relationships allow for the gradual sharing of emotions and experiences. When you open up too soon or too much, you may be giving the other person more power over you emotionally than you're ready for. Taking the time to establish emotional boundaries ensures that you remain in control of your feelings and can protect your heart from unnecessary hurt. In relationships, boundaries also mean that you're allowed to have your own life outside of the relationship. You don't have to sacrifice your friends, family, hobbies, or career for the sake of your relationship. A person who respects your boundaries will understand that you need time for yourself and won't try to impose on your personal space. This is crucial because it helps prevent codependency, where both people rely too heavily on one another for emotional fulfillment. Healthy boundaries ensure that both partners can grow individually while supporting each other as equals. In the absence of boundaries, you risk losing your sense of self. You may begin to compromise on your values, your needs, and even your beliefs just to keep the peace or avoid conflict. But what happens is that you lose the very essence of who you are and you become a mere reflection of the other person. Maintaining your boundaries protects your identity, your emotional health, and the integrity of the relationship itself. It's not just about what you tolerate, it's about what you're willing to accept from yourself and others, ensuring that you continue to respect your own worth while allowing room for mutual respect in the relationship. Trying too hard can be one of the most damaging things you can do in a relationship. It comes from a place of insecurity or fear, the desire to please someone or win their approval. While it's natural to want to make a good impression and to show someone that you care, overdoing it can come across as desperate or inauthentic. Men, like anyone else, can sense when someone is trying too hard, and it often leads to them losing interest or respect. Authenticity is what ultimately attracts people, not someone constantly striving for validation. When you try too hard, you end up overextending yourself. You might change your behavior, your interests, or your personality just to fit into what you believe the other person wants. This can lead to feelings of exhaustion because you're pretending to be something you're not. You're sacrificing your true self in an attempt to gain approval. What you may not realize is that this effort can feel forced, and it might even make the other person feel uncomfortable. People are drawn to confidence, and confidence comes from being comfortable in your own skin. When you try too hard, you convey the message that you don't believe in yourself or your own worth unless someone else does. This insecurity undermines your value in the eyes of the person you're trying to impress. Another aspect of trying too hard is constantly putting the other person's needs and desires before your own. While it's important to show care and consideration in a relationship, it should never come at the expense of your own well-being. If you're always bending over backward to make someone happy, you may start to lose sight of your own needs. This behavior can create an unhealthy dynamic in the relationship where one person is doing all the giving and the other is receiving without reciprocation. Over time, this imbalance can lead to resentment and frustration. You start to feel taken for granted, while the other person might feel suffocated or pressured by the constant effort to please them. Trying too hard can also mean that you're chasing validation instead of fostering a healthy mutual connection. When you focus too much on winning someone's approval, you're not allowing the relationship to unfold naturally. You're so consumed by the need to be liked or accepted that you forget what it means to be yourself. This pressure to gain someone's affection can backfire, causing them to feel as though the connection is not real. Authentic relationships are built on trust, respect, and mutual appreciation, not on performing for someone else's approval. The moment you stop trying so hard and let go of the need to please, you allow room for a genuine connection to form. Sometimes trying too hard also manifests as being overly available or sacrificing your own time, interests, or social life to accommodate the other person. This can lead to a lack of balance where one person's needs dominate the relationship. A healthy relationship requires space and time for both partners to pursue their individual passions and maintain a sense of independence. When you constantly prioritize someone else over your own life, you not only lose your identity, but you also risk creating a relationship dynamic that is one-sided and unhealthy. In the end, trying too hard erodes your sense of self-worth. It's important to remember that you are enough just as you are, and you don't need to change or prove anything to anyone. Men are attracted to women who are confident, self-assured, and who know their worth. They don't want someone who is constantly seeking approval or performing to meet their expectations. Authenticity is the key to building a meaningful connection. When you stop trying so hard to impress and start being yourself, that's when you become truly attractive. Settling for less than you deserve is one of the most damaging things you can do to your self-worth and value in any relationship. Too often, women, driven by the fear of being alone or the desire to have a relationship, allow themselves to accept situations or behaviors that don't align with their standards or values. They may find themselves in relationships where they are constantly compromising, giving more than they're receiving, or even enduring mistreatment simply because they don't believe they deserve better. The sad truth is that when you settle for less, You undermine your own value and reinforce the idea that you're not worthy of the respect and love you truly deserve. One of the main reasons women settle for less is the fear of being single. The societal pressure to be in a relationship can be overwhelming, and as a result, some women feel like they must accept whatever comes their way, even if it isn't fulfilling or healthy. They might meet someone who isn't quite right for them, but because they fear loneliness, they choose to stay in the relationship, hoping things will improve over time. But here's the thing. If someone isn't meeting your needs or treating you the way you deserve, the relationship will only continue to cause frustration, pain, and self-doubt. You might convince yourself that you'll never find anyone better, but settling for less means accepting a version of love that doesn't honor who you are. Another reason women settle for less is that they believe they can fix or change someone. They might see potential in a man and hope that with enough love, patience, or effort, he will become the person they want him to be. While it's admirable to want to help someone grow, you cannot change someone who isn't willing to change themselves. If a man isn't ready to commit, put in the effort, or treat you with respect, no amount of love or sacrifice will alter that. By settling for less, you're choosing to invest your time and energy into someone who doesn't have the same commitment to the relationship as you do. This not only prevents you from finding the right partner, but it also prevents you from recognizing your own value. You start to believe that you have to settle because no one better will come along, and that mindset holds you back from the kind of relationship you truly deserve. Settling also means accepting poor treatment. Many women endure toxic relationships accepting disrespect, dishonesty, or emotional abuse because they believe they don't deserve better. They might rationalize a man's behavior, telling themselves that it's just a phase or that he'll change if they give him enough time. But when you tolerate mistreatment, you teach others how to treat you. You send a message that you're willing to accept the bare minimum and that your self-worth isn't tied to how well you're treated. This creates a harmful cycle where you continue to settle for less, only to feel more hurt and disconnected in the end. A man who truly values you will not make you settle for less than you deserve. He will respect your needs, understand your boundaries, and treat you with the love and care that you give to him. Another way women settle for less is by lowering their standards. Maybe they feel like they're being too picky, or they've been single for too long and don't want to wait any longer for a relationship. In this mindset, they start overlooking red flags, ignoring behaviors that are unacceptable, and compromising on things that really matter to them. They may allow themselves to settle for a partner who doesn't meet their emotional, intellectual, or even physical needs. But when you lower your standards, you make yourself susceptible to accepting less than you deserve. You end up in relationships that don't serve you, and over time, this only diminishes your sense of self-worth. Your standards aren't about being unrealistic or demanding perfection. They're about recognizing what you truly need in a partner and never compromising on those needs. The most damaging aspect of settling for less is that it keeps you from recognizing your own value. When you accept poor treatment or stay in unfulfilling relationships, you start to believe that you're not worthy of more. You begin to question your own worth, and this lack of self-belief only perpetuates a cycle of accepting less. You might convince yourself that this is the best you can do, that you can't have the kind of relationship you truly want, and that it's better to settle than to risk being alone. But the truth is that settling only reinforces negative beliefs about yourself. You have to remind yourself that you are worthy of the best. You deserve a partner who uplifts you, supports you, and adds value to your life. When you stop settling, you give yourself the opportunity to find a love that honors you for who you are, not just for what you're willing to tolerate.